welcome to your Wealth, a show that looks at all things money markets and investments. And indeed, it is the last quarter of the year. We've been through it all. We have seen it all in the business sector, and we are still right here giving you all the information that you need. And today, we're still continuing with our journey with entrepreneurs, just getting to know how they have been carrying out their businesses in Zimbabwe and how it has been. And today we're going to be zeroing in on survival skills, what entrepreneurs are doing to ensure that they survive in an economy such as Zimbabwe. And in the studio I'm joined by Nabi, who is an expert in the area of security, and is going to be telling us more about that sector and what we need to know if you're interested to get into that sector. Good evening, Nabi.
Good evening.
I'm good. Let me get straight into my first question. How would you describe, the current business environment in Zimbabwe as an entrepreneur?
All right. Thanks very much for that. Zim basically, generally speaking, it's a tough environment. We've only witnessed recently the government scraping off some licenses and some fees that were hindering the ease of doing business. So generally before that, we were speaking about the ease of doing business, but there wasn't really the ease of doing business. We're looking at if I tender in my papers for, say I want to renew a license, or this is the initial application for a license. You're looking at how long it takes before you get a response from the from the regulator, and the turnaround time, quite frankly, has been long unnecessarily. So we're hoping that with these changes that they've brought in, those are some of the issues and areas that are going to be addressed. You look at other countries, for you to register your company, 48 hours, they send you an email. You don't even have to go there. You have all your papers. By in Zim, I doubt that at this point we have an electronic system that will do that for people. So basically that makes the environment quite challenging. I wouldn't say it's an impossible environment, no. But I would say it's quite difficult, and you really have to be innovative in order to survive and break through.
All right. Well, quite interesting that you mentioned, how the government has taken steps, towards ensuring that we do have ease of business, as people now. Taking to you personally, how can one sustain a business, in such an economy?
Well, like I said, Zim is quite difficult, not impossible, but difficult. In school, many times you're taught about your IQ, you're taught about your EQ, you're taught about the SQ, but rarely do people talk about what we call the AQ. So your IQ obviously is your intelligence quotient, your EQ your emotional quotient, your SQ your social quotient. The AQ is the adaptability quotient. So you really need to adapt, you really need to improvise, you need to learn, unlearn, and relearn if you're going to survive the Zim economy. Because the truth of the matter is that what works today might not apply tomorrow. Or if you look at the trend that's there, very few people are innovators in our economy. And the reason I say this, and I say this with utmost humility, if you open a boutique, you have 50 other people who are coming in to open the same business line. They're not bringing any innovation. They're not doing anything new. They're just copying and pasting the business model that you've applied. Therefore, the market is then flooded with the same thing. So you came up with the model, you came up with the concept, but then because others have copied that, it means you're going to be forced to share your market share with them, is it? And you look at it from what we would call a blue ocean strategy, because once you start with something, others are going to follow. So it's a bit difficult for you to actually say, this is my blue ocean. I've moved away from the red ocean. You see, so you've got to have innovation after innovation and innovation upon innovation for things to just work for you.
All right. Now, coming to you with your business, of course, you were talking, in general terms, how one can sustain their business, in such an economy. Now, I want to hear from you with your business. How have you managed to sustain your business in this economy?
It's a culmination of a number of things. The first thing, like I said, I'm going to be talking a lot about innovation. I run a security company, Swatic Security, and we looked at the modern day crime trends, and obviously we established that the conventional way of security is no longer relevant, in the sense that when you look at how the armed robberies are being executed, you can tell that people have put a bit of thinking into their execution. They have some form of skill and other things. Then we just went onto the ops table, looked at the recruitment methods of other security firms, and we decided, okay, since we have a strong presence of military, retired military personnel from our Zimbabwe National Army, why don't we recruit people from, the reserve force, or people who are retired, if I can say it that way. So you're looking at someone who's been trained and was conversant with war, with weapons, tactics, from a strategic level, an operational level, as well as a tactical level. And whereas the conventional system, it's okay, I just post an ad in the press, and then whoever wants to come and get a job, they just apply. Not because they're passionate about it, not because they're skilled. And then we just train them for 2 weeks. But then you want to ask yourself the question, the amount of training or the training methods we're using compared to the crime trends, the crime threats, how will our officers fare? So this is why we came up with the concept of a quasi-military security unit. So that has created a niche for us. And also we've paired that with cybersecurity. In all over the world, it's established and it's known that cybersecurity is a very huge threat if you don't take it seriously. And it's very recent that the government here also then came up with what was the cyber bill, and it was then enacted and passed as a law. So I think we are doing well. As far as that is concerned, and taking advantage of that.
All right. Well, I really like the innovative aspect that you mentioned in the recruiting part. To say we're not just going for the ordinary person, but we're going to take those who have had some form of training in regards to security issues. So I think that is something that is really profound, because when you look at other security companies that are, I'm throwing shade, but you can see someone and then you're like, are you sure they can guard those premises? So I really like that innovation part. So I think when we come back in the second segment, we'll talk more on issues of starting a business. How do you formalize? Is it necessary to formalize? In such an economy, your journey also as an entrepreneur, to say how have you managed to jump these hurdles? So I think I will talk more when we come back in the second segment.
Great.
Well, thank you very much, viewers, for joining us in the first segment. We'll be back shortly. Welcome back to the second segment of Your World, and we're still talking about being an entrepreneur in an economy such as Zimbabwe. And today in the studio, we're joined by Nabi, who is an expert in the security sector, and he's going to be sharing with us some tips on how one can actually sustain their business and how they can, jump over some hurdles that might hinder them, in making their business prosperous. So we asked you to continue with our discussion. My question to you now is, many people want to start their businesses, right? But they hesitate. What are some of the first practical steps they should take if they want to, establish a business that will grow?
Well, every business needs to. I guess the starting point is desktop research.
Okay.
Do your the basics, your market research, understand the culture of the people, understand the nature of the products or the services that you want to provide. With that understanding, the next biggest thing that you've got to do is to start. I guess the challenge is people think when you start, you're just going to start and you'll be big. But it's never like that. What I've witnessed personally and what I've also seen from other people, whom I would call predecessors in the business world, you have to think big, but you start small. You start now. Start from where you are. Rarely would you get a business concept that just grows overnight. There is nothing like that. I believe in miracles, but they don't happen every day. That's why you've got to have faith for them, isn't it?
Yeah.
So think big, start small, but start now. Yeah.
All right, interesting. And now, how important is it for entrepreneurs to register and also formalize their businesses?
It's very important. I'll say Zimbabwe is for Zimbabweans first. And if you want to establish a business that's meaningful, that's significant, you've got to formalize, you've got to register. But then again, this is where, as an entrepreneur, as a business person, I begin to appeal to the government. Because as far as growing the economy is concerned, you can't depend on the government. No. That part is for entrepreneurs. They are the ones who drive the economy. They are the ones who produce the results, the positive changes that we want to see in the economy. However, the policies from the government for every field of entrepreneurship, every business field, they have to enable the entrepreneur to do what he knows best. I'll give you an example of the things that I think we could change as a people. Some of the taxes that we have, they don't make sense because they don't allow for a business to grow. It's as if the government is punishing you for doing the right thing. The other guys who are not formalizing are not tendering any revenue to Zimra. But we're the ones who have formalized. Then you have your pay as you earn, you have your VAT, you have your income tax. And I'm sure I came across an article that was talking about Zim having 52 taxes that are there. That alone shows you the difficulties that various entrepreneurs go through. But we would want support from the government in terms of creating an environment that allows for entrepreneurs to thrive. That way, we can grow the Zimbabwean economy as Zimbabweans.
All right. Now, I want to talk about competition for a bit, right? You are in the security sector. Of course, there are other players that are in the sector, who are doing what you're doing. Now, the issue for me that I would want to know, and I believe the viewers would also want to get an understanding of, is how do you manage to, work on the issue of competition? Because sometimes people take it too far. They end up doing things that are not necessary for them just to compete. How do you handle that pressure? When you see another player, coming up with innovative ideas, and then, you feel like, no, we haven't been doing as much as them. How do you handle the issue of competition?
Well, what I will say is a common phrase to begin with. If you're in a rat race, even if you come out first, you're still a rat at the end of the day.
Okay.
Yeah. That's what I'll say. Competition is there. It's real. But I believe more in collaborations. That's the first thing. And secondly, I look at our business model. If I'm to personalize your question to our business model as SWATIC Security, at the moment I don't think we have any competitors, because we work in hostile environments, hostile territories, and without mentioning names, there is one organization that was suffering a great deal from armed robberies.
Okay.
They contacted us, we sat down, we had a meeting, and without firing a single bullet, we were able to come up with a security concept, a security strategy that was able to alleviate the armed robbery challenges that they were going through. So in that regard, I will humbly say that speaking for our organization, I don't think we have any competition, because at present, for the past 5 years that we've been operating, I'm yet to see an organization that has the same ethos, that is the same modus operandi as ours. So I might not be the best person to talk about competition, because we've just created, like I said earlier on, a blue ocean for ourselves.
Right.
We looked at the limitations and the weaknesses of the old system.
Okay.
And when we came in, we just decided to focus on the things that were real, that people are facing on a day-to-day basis, and yet no one was addressing. And those are the issues that we are dealing with. And yeah, so we're quite comfortable where we are.
All right. Now you mentioned something to do with collaboration, and I was just, thinking with the way that you are, putting out what you do as an organization. When you do collaborate with others, which I'm not sure which ones, don't you have that fear as an entrepreneur that they might steal your ideas, or they might then, do something that might jeopardize, that relationship that you probably will be trying to create? But, I think you can answer this one when we come back in the third segment, so that we can just get to hear on how you handle collaboration as an organization.
Perfect.
Well, there you have it, viewers. This was our second segment. We'll be back shortly with the final segment of Your Wealth. Welcome back to the last segment of Your Wealth. Today we're talking about being an entrepreneur in Zimbabwe, and also we're just zeroing in on the security sector, because our guest today has got much expertise in that sector, and we're just getting to know, the ins, the out, and also how one can survive, in such an economy. And I do have Nabi in the house, and we are just, going to take further our conversation. And, I'd asked you a question earlier about collaboration, if you could just, respond to that.
Well, as far as collaborations are concerned, we look at, personally, my philosophy is not to look at what needs to be done. I look at who am I going to be dealing with, because for me the who is always more important than the task at hand.
Okay.
That's the first thing about collaborations. And it is also important for us to note that we actually have training programs. If you run your own security firm and you come interview us and look into our work and what we do, and maybe do cross references with some of our clients, and you see that you'd love to have your guys trained to that standard, we are very much open and very free to train them to that level, because we look at it from a perspective of preserving lives. So for me, I take security companies as one family, and I take the perpetrators as the opposing or the arch nemesis of the family of security companies. So if I read in the press, or I hear in the press that a security guard from such and such a company that's not ours was shot dead, or they were wounded, it's a loss to us as part of the security cluster. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because I don't think that our fight is against one another. Of course, business competition is there. Everyone is chasing after the dollar. But I prefer looking at it from that perspective, where if we can exchange knowledge, if we can share notes, we might be able to achieve greater things.
Okay, all right. Now, but what are some of the biggest challenges that you have faced, as you were navigating your way, in the security sector? What are some of the biggest challenges that, our viewers might really want to know and learn from, as they might also, would like to venture into the security sector?
Okay. We started this during the COVID period.
Okay.
So the funny thing is that most of the people who were already operating security companies, one would sit with them and ask them about the industry. What's it like? How are you guys, managing? How are you faring and stuff like that? Everyone was saying, "Oh no, the challenge is that they've changed the regulations. They've done this. It's difficult." And my response was, "Oh, okay, that's great." And then they'll say, they spoke as if those were the challenges we're going to encounter. But I looked at it from a perspective that said, look, I do not know how you were operating all along.
Okay.
So this is the entry level for me. I'm coming in now, and these are the things that they told me. So you are being affected because we're used to a certain order. But for me, this is the prerequisite and this is the requirement. So I had a mental advantage over the guys who were used to a certain modus operandi. As they say, the enemy of initiatives and new things is always the master in the old thing.
All right.
So when we got in, it was a new phase, it was a new era, and it was a new dispensation, if I can put it that way. So we're not familiar with the old way of doing things. We're just introduced to the new way. So the challenges that we faced were from a regulation perspective. Number one, the initial registration for the security company. I understand, this is security. Security is highly sensitive. But surely, in a country that wants to develop its economy, the turnaround for you to get a response, whether after the vetting processes you've been given the authority to get the operating license or not, it shouldn't take too long, And also, when you look at it from an operating perspective, we are regulated by the Ministry of Home Affairs, and they have regulations in terms of the firearms that we can use. We can use semi-automatic weapons, but no one is there to regulate armed robbers. They can get the AK rifles, they can get the FN rifles, and these are powerful assault rifles in our African context. Yeah? And for all you know, the FN rifle was actually banished by the United Nations because of the power that it has. But armed robbers have access to these things because they have power and they have range. But we are restricted and limited to weapons that don't have as much power, that don't have as much range. So we are operating from a disadvantage in that regard. Then because we're strong in cybersecurity as well, the time it took for them to put up the cybersecurity framework and pass it into a law, it doesn't mean that there were no cyber crimes happening while the policy makers were deliberating on those issues. Yeah. But it's so those delays give advantage to the perpetrators more than they do to those people who are trying to defend the economy.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. I want us to now talk about technology and security, which I believe is really something that is necessary, if I may put it that way. How have you managed to combine the physical aspect and the digital security aspect as an organization? How have you managed to combine those two?
We've done that fairly well, and the reason is this: the philosophy we have is very simple.
Okay.
Gone are the days where you have people with rifles, like the cash and transit teams, the rapid response and rapid reaction groups, coming with their weapons and so forth. Nowadays, someone can wipe out $1 million from your account at the press of a button. So if you're still caught up in the old way and the old order where you think only hard and physical cash is vulnerable, then you still have a very long way to go, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we do have guys who are trained, a team that's trained and devoted to cyber issues. We've had the opportunity to look into certain cyber systems or IT systems for different for a few local entities, and we've managed to deliver an astonishing degree. One was when we looked at it was an insurance company, So with artificial intelligence, yeah, it then compiles the data for you. So you start seeing all these anomalies. Okay, for instance, why is it that the person who reported this crime is from the police officer who handled this is from this particular station, then from a different, whether it's a jurisdiction or it's a jurisprudence, the same name is popping up. So you already smell it right there. But when you're going through that those files physically, those are some of the things that you might not be able to pick. But with artificial intelligence, it's able to put those bits of information for you in clusters where you can actually scrutinize them and interpret and then come to a sound conclusion.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, now just out of curiosity, do you think we'll end up in an era where we have the security guards as robots?
There is a possibility.
Okay.
There is a very great possibility. I mean, you look at artificial intelligence, where it's going. You look at the drones that people are using now. They have, very modern technology. And I was laughing when one of my cyber guys was telling me this technology is from the future. And I'm thinking, okay, we're saying we're just stepping into the future to catch up with the rest of the world. But he's telling me, no. You've got to understand that the technology that they've used on these drones is from the future.
Okay.
So if an expert is telling you that, then that means there are quite a lot of things that are going to, to change and shift.
All right. Well, thank you so much, for coming through and sharing, all this knowledge. And I must say, you said some profound things, To start off with, you said in such an economy as Zimbabwe, one needs to learn, unlearn and relearn, which I think is very vital if you're an entrepreneur, because things always change. What is relevant today might not be relevant tomorrow. So thank you, for putting that out, and also, just encouraging, the viewers to say, think big, start small, and start now. I think this now speaks to you because you started during COVID, when everyone was a bit skeptical, on the issue of, starting a business, but you had, the strength, and the vision to say, we need to start now and move forward. So I think this was something that is really motivating, and thank you so much for coming through.
No, thank you for having me.
All right. Well, there you have it, viewers. We had Nabi in the studio, was talking to us about being an entrepreneur in Zimbabwe, and also just telling us about his journey, in the security sector. And I hope you managed to get some few points that will help you to, be resilient as you will be starting your own business. So thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you next week.